Well, if you see it from the American perspective, it is fairly significant because, Zawahiri, along with bin Laden, was one of the two people they've been trying to hunt down for almost 30 years now. And this sort of, gives a shade of closure to the sort of war on terror era that they got both the al-Qaeda leaders, bin Laden in 2011 and Zawahiri now. But beyond that, there's still a lot of questions that it happened in Afghanistan. It happened under the patronage of the Taliban in central Kabul, in a very posh area of central Kabul. So not just, anywhere in the outskirts. So these are still questions that are going to we are going to see answers of in the subsequent months. And I think it is going to strain the U.S.-Taliban relationship as well. Going forward, because both of them now blame of breaching the Qatar agreement.
Yeah, and to that point, the Qatar agreement says Taliban can't harbour any terrorists on their territory, but the US can't intervene. So basically, both have contravened. But the Taliban was, he was hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he was not hiding. I think he was being harbored. There's a stark difference. But the Doha, the Qatar agreement is extremely strangely worded. It gives a lot of room for both parties to maneuver as they wish to maneuver. If you see the Taliban statement today, they don't mention Zawahiri at all. They do mention that there was a drone strike, and they do mention that that it was in breach of the Qatar agreement, but they don't mention what the drone strike targeted. They don't mention al-Qaeda or Zawahiri, because if they do that, then they are they are breaching the agreement as well. So it's a cat and mouse kind of situation at this point of time. But I think it's something very symbolic for the U.S. at this point of time, and for the Taliban, some more questions to answer now.
Yeah. What does it do for the political dynamic in Afghanistan on the ground in terms of these kind of people being still part of, I guess, the instability of what that country is now facing?
Look, I think there is no sort of political system in Afghanistan at this point of time. It is just the Taliban trying to take control. They want... They are well past now any attempts to have a cohesive and inclusive government. It is a very Taliban government now. And they are going to sort of double down if such drone strikes continue, because they will see it as a breach of their own sovereignty. I was reading some preliminary reports, for example, that Pakistan was denying the US using its airspace or any information that it had previously of such a strike taking place, which begs the question: where did the strike, occur from? Considering Afghanistan is a landlocked country, and on one side is Central Asia, which is highly improbable for the drones to fly from, and Iran is nearly impossible for the drones to fly from. So there's a lot of sort of regional, wrangling happening from a geopolitical level, and I think that U.S. has also made a very strong statement that this is their first over-the-horizon counter-terrorism strike, and it was straight the al-Qaeda chief. That sends out a very strong message.
Joe Biden says this gives, U.S. victims of terror some measure of closure. Do you agree with that assessment? And how significant was he as an al-Qaeda leader?
I think he was very significant because he's been sort of Osama bin Laden's right-hand man since the 90s, as part of the Egyptian Islamic Jihad, which allied with bin Laden in the 90s, then actually formally joined al-Qaeda in 2001. So he was the second person in command for a long, long period of time. So it is very significant from that perspective, but also from President Biden's perspective, that is very true. A lot of Americans in service have lost their lives trying to track these people down. And now that both the top leaders have now been killed who were directly involved with 9/11, I think there will be a significant sense of closure coming in.
Yeah. So, so often people say, well, you may cut off the top of the snake, but another head will appear. So how quickly will he be replaced? And is there an obvious successor?
I don't think there is an obvious successor yet. It's very difficult to say. The one obvious successor that everyone was aiming at is actually living in Iran right now, ironically. So I think it will not be too long when we'll find out who the successor is, but it's very difficult to sort of predict who it's going to be. Because there are no sort of legacy ideologues left in Al Qaeda anymore. Anyone who's going to come right now will have to stamp their own authority. We saw this in Islamic State with Baghdadi. Once Baghdadi was killed and the other successors came in, no one had the same impact to what Baghdadi did. So we'll have to wait and watch and see who it is going to be. Earlier, it was going to be Hamza bin Laden, Osama bin Laden's one of his sons, but he was also reportedly killed in 2019. So I think the ideology of Al Qaeda is not going anywhere, right? But operationally, they're quite diminished. And it's possible they get diminished a little bit further if there is not a strong head in front of the snake.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point. Where does al-Qaeda stand alongside ISIS and other terror groups? Do you think is it losing its power?
Look, it's very subjective when we are saying it's losing its power. What does that mean? Yes, Al-Qaeda has not been able to replicate anything 9/11 related. They were sort of outshone by the Islamic State for a long period of time. But you also have to remember that the Islamic State was much more of like a Hollywood film. It started and finished within a period of time. I think Al-Qaeda is much more stronger in that sense. They have a larger vision. They're much more grounded and they're much more moored in their ideology, which gives them better chance of longevity as a group. So I would not discount the threat of Al-Qaeda just as yet. I think we'll have to now see how they operate because they do have affiliates both in South Asia, in Africa, and other parts of the world.